computer. Hello, darlings. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Loves, I am super, super pleased that we are able to have Jennifer Harmony spend a little time with us today. And she's like a super, super expert and a master practitioner in EFT, which is this tapping modality. And Jen's got 11 years of experience guiding people through this EFT work, and I'm so curious, and we'll dig into that a little more. But she's also like 17 years experienced as a transformational guide. And I'm also delighted that I get a little piece of Jen each fortnight when we deliver these wonderful workshops at the Yoga Barn in Ubud under the banner of the Wisdom Women's Collective. Oh, Jen, thank you so much.
Hi, love. Hi, everyone who's watching. It's so good to see you and to meet everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can really, really feel you. Thank you. Jen, like I really want to get into talking about EFT and just the transformations that you've seen within yourself and with your clients, and how we can use it in everyday life to maybe call in abundance, call in a partner, call in the best lives ever. But before we go in there, as I always do, I'd love to know about you. And my work is on, menstrual wisdom, and I'd love for you to share, if you can remember, your first moon, your menarche, and how that was for you, and how you feel that that moment has set up the relationship between you and your menstrual cycle.
Yeah, beautiful question. I'm so passionate about talking about this as well, after over a decade of guiding women in this kind of work as well. So I bled for the first time when I was 15. So on one hand, it was a relief. There was, as my mind had been telling me, for watching all my friends starting to bleed. And on the other hand, I felt so much shame and embarrassment, because I'm from a very conservative Christian family where nothing like that is ever talked about. And so the dread that I felt going to tell my mom that I'd started bleeding was really palpable. And by coincidence, I remember I told her on the way to doing a church play, or like some sort of play in the church. And it feels so interesting that the church was involved in this somehow. And I remember my mum's reaction was just, well, do you want a pad or a Tampax? And I didn't know what either of those things were. And I was like, what do you use? And she said Tampax. And she's like, but I think you should use a pad. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I just wanted the conversation to be over as quickly as possible, because I could feel how uncomfortable she was. I could feel her disappointment, that I'd started bleeding and that I was becoming a woman. And the whole thing was just like excruciating, absolutely excruciating. So yeah, that was how I started bleeding. And that was how I continued bleeding, with that same sort of shame and, hiddenness. And I mean, I will say this was 1995 in Scotland. So I remember writing to agony aunts in magazines, asking questions to see if I was normal. And we didn't have the resources at the moment. We weren't able to Google things or follow accounts, sex positive accounts, or, amazing accounts like yourself that share wisdom like this. So I felt so alone in all of it, and continued to feel very alone, and just hid every time I was bleeding, and felt really embarrassed and ashamed, and during classes, or if I had a boyfriend when I got a bit older. And one of the big things that changed for me was in 2005, and by this time I'd started traveling loads. So I was actually in Pakistan, of all places, where I got my first moon cup. And I got a friend from Scotland to bring it over, because when I was in the Dalai Lama's complex, I saw this sign saying, you can stop using Tampax. They're really bad for the environment and everything like that. So this friend had bought me over a moon cup on request. And I remember using it, and everything changed in relationship to my blood. I could see it for the first time, and suddenly I didn't have the vocabulary back then to think that it was holy or anything, but it somehow felt precious. You know, it felt special somehow. And from that moment, the cramps that I'd been having changed, and I just remember it really shifted how I felt about bleeding. So yeah, but after that, it definitely got better. My relationship with my body and my blood definitely improved. So yeah.
Do you have any rituals that you spend time gifting yourself when you're on your moon? I'm curious because you use the cup, and whether the relationship with seeing your blood has moved on to using it in a ritual way at all.
Yeah, I've gone through different rituals in different phases. If I started bleeding when I was 15 and I'm 42 now, that's been many years. So using the blood at the moment, I definitely like at least anointing myself with one dot and giving the blood back to the earth. I've been learning a lot from you just in these last couple of months since we met around, before I would take some blood in a cup or even drink from the cup of blood. And I learned onwards is good. And also, as you recommended, I've now got a Scottish raspberry jam jar in the fridge that I'm starting to collect my blood in. So the rituals that I do with my blood, it just feels more like the honoring. I feel joy every time I see my blood. There's not really something specific that I do with my blood every time. My rituals are more like slowing down and yeah.
Beautiful, darling. Like slowing down and just that moment when we first bleed and looking at it with joy. That's so potent. So potent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, you work with many women, and and men as well. And I'm curious, Jen, like, do you notice in your I guess one-on-one sessions specifically, do you notice a difference in energy where women might be in their cycle?
Yeah, for sure. So what we're doing with EFT is we're getting really clear through compassionate inquiry what's the negative thoughts that are running through someone's mind. So in the different phases of a woman's cycle, the thoughts are going to be different. And ovulation can usually feel on top of the world, like everything's going really well. So there's not going to be the same negative monologue inside. Whereas in the luteal phase and possibly during bleeding, that's when thoughts can become more negative. And everything that's more challenging, let's say, has the dial turned up. So usually it's a lot more intense at those times, and can tell definitely with the clients that I'm working with where they're at in their cycle, and what's coming out of them usually.
So it's fascinating to me. It's just deeper. I love this stuff. And EFT is something that I've only discovered maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but just the way you describe it, it's like poetry to my ears. Would you share a little around how you discovered EFT and how you feel it can support a woman, whether she be wanting to manifest or be a CEO of a high-powered business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do the second part of that first. The way that EFT, because how I discovered it's such a long story, so we could talk about that for hours. So what we're doing with EFT is we're tapping on different meridian points. So we're connecting into the somatics. We're going into the body. We're really looking at the mind-body connection. And the tapping's been proven by Harvard, stimulating acupressure points around the body to decrease cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and increase oxytocin. So that's a really nice chemical concoction we've got going on inside our brains. And it's also creating new synapses inside the mind, and it can change our DNA expression, which is just phenomenal. Like, so that's the sort of scientific side of it. And what we're doing when we're practicing EFT is we're tapping and we're acknowledging whatever the negative thoughts are, negative thoughts, the negative emotions that are inside of us. It's all just a part of us. And I see any of those negative thoughts or emotions as a massive neon sign that's just pointing to a part of us that is in need of love. And so we can follow the trail of those thoughts or emotions, limiting beliefs, pains that are happening in our body, back to the earliest memory, or back to a time in our life where we were abandoned, we felt really alone, where pain and problems were happening, and we can give that part of ourselves love. Because what's happened back then is we've created beliefs about the world, especially until we're 7 years old. Our brain's in a theta state, like a state of hypnosis, and we don't really have the ability to say, oh, that's good, that's bad. So many people who come from, it could be a big T trauma, abuse family, or little t, we can be covered in stab wounds or paper cuts, but we're living in an unenlightened society. So all of us have some sort of injuries from childhood and have created beliefs as a result of that. So this is how it ties into, if you're wanting to be a high-flying CEO and you've got so much going for you and everything's going so well, and you're doing all the affirmations every morning. But if we haven't gone back into childhood or back into the moments where we were injured, those parts of us are still going to be there in our subconscious mind, just whispering like, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you're an imposter. Or if it's about manifesting a boyfriend, it's going to be, you're not really lovable, he's going to leave you. And so we end up wearing a mask or something like that in order to present. With EFT is we're able to go back and find ourselves and give them the acceptance and the love and talk to them in a way that changes our brain. It reprograms the subconscious mind, that creates all of this space as we start to realize, goodness, I've always been worthy of love. I didn't do anything wrong. What I was learning at that time isn't an accurate representation of the world based on where I'm at now. And so we're able to let go of those limiting beliefs and actually step into the fullness of who we are. And I always feel like it's an upgrade in life where we reach the next level. And it's so amazing just to watch these old versions of ourselves fall away as the beliefs fall away and we reprogram our minds.
Wow.
Yeah.
I often think when I'm tapping, or when I've seen you tapping, of like something that, it's so dorky, of like tapping it out. It's like, it's whatever negative belief, it's like tap it out. And it's like, whatever that little limiting belief is, if I think of it as like a little cell, I'm tapping it up to the surface so I can clear it. Yeah,
I love that. That's beautiful. It's so amazing. And in a nutshell, the quickest hack that we can do with EFT, something that I love about it is it's so easy to learn. If you're ever struggling with something, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, just tapping on your chest and breathing as the intensity or the thoughts are there, just tapping, taking a deep breath and say, even though I think this, even though I feel this way, I'm still a good person and I love and accept myself. And that's like, in a nutshell, is acknowledging what the pain, the problem is, and seeing it together with acceptance. And I came to EFT to answer the first part of your question through getting incredibly lost in India for many years, being deeply on the spiritual path, hating myself without realizing that I hated myself. I wanted to kill myself, but I didn't ever realize that meant I hated myself. Had a massive awakening when I realized I hated myself and wanted to get to the root of why I hated myself when I'd had such a perfect life. I'd had parents who'd loved me. I'd never had financial problems. Everyone had always been, it seemed like everyone always had been good to me. When I was traveling in Tibet and Pakistan and India and seeing people that had nothing and were suffering by our general definition in the Western world, and yet they were happier than I was, or they seemed happier than I was. And I couldn't match that in my mind at the time. And so I went deep into Vipassana meditation in a retreat center where the Buddha was born in Nepal, where could stay for as long as I wanted. And I spent about a month just asking myself that question: why do you hate yourself? Why do I hate myself? And the stories that I'd been telling myself, that, oh, when I was 18 and I lost my virginity and the guy cheated on me with two of my best friends, which was awful, but that wasn't actually true. And I unraveled it, and I chased those tales further back in time until I remembered that I was bullied really intensely from the age of 6 until 12 years old, and that all of what those bullies had been telling me became my inner voice, that no one was ever going to love me, that no one wanted to be my friend, and that just became internalized as my inner world. So with meditation, I was able to just let that go. But afterwards, you know, after you've had one of those epiphany moments, and I'll speak an I fell in love with myself. The only thing that I wanted to do was share this love with other people, and to help other people overcome whatever trauma it was that they'd been through, and to connect to this authentic love that exists inside each of us. And I said to life, come on, there must be a quicker way. It's not doable for everyone to go to India and Tibet and travel around like a mad thing. Like, I don't believe the universe is organized in that way. There must be a quicker way. We're traumatized in one instant, so we don't need 10 years of therapy. We should be able to get through this much faster. And within a couple of weeks, even in the Himalaya, I found EFT. It came very magically. So yeah, that started that journey. And then I trained as a practitioner in 2010. And since then, it's been the main modality that I use with clients and workshops, and in my online course, just teaching and sharing the power of this. Because it's, for me, just the fast track to applying compassion to yourself and love to yourself.
No, it's just, it really lights me up that, like, it's something that we can do anywhere, any place, anytime, and that in itself, like, is gold. So
yeah,
you know, just that, like, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm okay,
yeah,
you know,
accept how I'm feeling. It's okay that I feel really sad. So, you know, if someone's having a tough luteal moment, you know, it's like, oh my goodness, I feel so emotional, this just feels so like, you know, I'm making such a big deal out of this, and I know it's not such a big deal, but I just can't stop crying.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. I love and accept myself, even though my emotions and my hormones are going through the roof at the moment. Yeah. I'm okay. I love myself, even with all of this going on. So that's how we practice self-compassion using EFT, and it's putting it into the body. You know, it's actually like moving it through the meridian system into the physical body. It's not just some sort of only a mental technique. It works on the mental, emotional, and physical sides of things.
Good. So, I mean, if anyone's in Bali, which we a beautiful network of sisterhoods that are still here, Jen's facilitating a workshop on Thursday, so a week from today. However, you girls might be seeing this across the weekend. On Thursday, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, Thursday the 23rd. At 4 p.m. at Yoga Barn, and you can expect more of this kind of stuff. I would say, like, you know, knowing you and seeing you have shared a little bit in other workshops that we've all facilitated, the Wisdom Women together, you do give like these great little pieces of gold that can be used anywhere, any place, anytime. So you're also doing one-on-one sessions. And just before we pressed record on this, you mentioned that you've got a course if anybody felt to learn more about EFT. Could you share a little bit about like what the course is like? Like, you know, is it you? Is it filmed? Is it like something that's all programmed?
Yeah. So it's an online course where you learn how to use EFT tapping like a pro. So what was happening was a lot of people were coming and asking me to recommend EFT. Where could they learn EFT? And I realized there wasn't one that was diving deep enough and teaching techniques thoroughly enough. So I was like, okay, time to start teaching how to use EFT tapping by yourself, on yourself, like a pro, sharing my 11 years of experience with tapping. And because what I think is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves is creating a loving inner voice, is getting rid in a very loving way of the inner critic, of self-sabotage, of our inner bully. That, I mean, I still rub up against that part of myself when I'm going into some sort of new avenue, but on the whole, creating that inner cheerleader and that best friend inside of us. So that's the way that the course is designed. There's loads of tapping material. There's, I think, about 12 different modules and loads of different techniques, but basically you're learning how to use EFT by yourself. There's a lot of tapping videos that are also there, and that's the Ignite program. And yeah, so there's going to be a link somewhere to learn more about that.
Yeah,
but it's mostly, yeah, it's videos and a long, like a very in-depth workbook as well, with lots of written information as well, which people loved, in tapping scripts as well as tapping videos. And on YouTube, I have over 50 videos where you can tap along together with me on loads of different subjects as well, from loneliness to fear to anger to jealousy to sadness to stress to clearing a trigger to becoming a money magnet. There's loads of different fun topics that I've been choosing. So also pop the link in there, and that they're like 10-15 minutes fun videos to just go and get an experience of what EFT is.
Yes, I know what I'll be doing after this. I am a money magnet.
You are.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, because the universe wants these things for us. It's just, and this is what the workshop at Yoga Barn is going to be about, is how we're still sabotaging ourselves, and how it's just those limiting beliefs and those old parts of us that aren't serving us anymore, that are just getting in the way. So yeah, we're going to be clearing all of that out so we can really like unleash our potential and step into that next version of ourselves. And I am, you know, I'm not one for woo-woo and not one for fluff. You know, it's like, this is what really works, and this is what I've been using for a really long time. And I was into so many different techniques before I came to EFT. And I love integrating spiritual wisdom in a way that's really, really practical. So I think you're very much on that page as well, love.
It's a credit to you, Jen, because I have like learned a little bit a few years back, but until I met you, I was like, oh, I can feel your enthusiasm, and I'm like a yes to it. So yeah, I'm super looking forward to your workshop and learning more about how I can just use EFT in every day. Like, that thing for me is gold, but like other things, and how to amplify the abundance that's already available to us through, you know, clearing any limiting beliefs and blocks around it. Yeah.
It's literally how we get out of our own way. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Thank you, my love.
Thank you so much, love.
Appreciate chatting with you.
And thank you everyone who's watched this. It's so amazing to be able to connect to new hearts, and thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to stop our recording. And there we go. Oh, hang on, no, that's not stopping the recording.